Belize is planning to spend a whopping $1.78 billion this fiscal year, but nearly half of that will go towards government salaries and pensions. And that, says one local economist, is simply too much. Dr. Phillip Castillo, an economist and lecturer at the University of Belize, says the country can't afford to keep pouring such a large chunk of its budget into paying public workers and retirees. In an interview, Dr. Castillo pointed out a troubling issue. Some people are still getting paid even though they're not formally employed. He believes the government needs to take a hard look at its payroll and cut off payments to those who shouldn't be there.
What jumps out at me is the inordinate expenditures on wages and salaries and pensions. Now, the way to handle that, meaning that the unions have, they've accused basically government of having a host of ghost workers. That's a low-hanging fruit. You could easily ascertain. I'm certain that government could initiate an investigation to ascertain if there are ghost workers on its payroll. If there are, you certainly want to move them.
According to Castillo, removing so-called ghost workers, people who are still being paid despite not actively working, could significantly reduce the country's wage bill. And the numbers are no small matter. When he presented the national budget, Prime Minister John Briceño revealed that 40 cents of every dollar the government spends goes directly to salaries and pensions. Last year alone, that added up to $500 million. Castillo says that kind of spending isn't sustainable.
Government spending on salaries for its estimated 15,000 workforce, all teachers and public officers, was $503 million, with an additional $132 million spent on pensions and ex gratia payments. Put it differently, 52 cents of every dollar of government recurrent spending goes to salaries and pensions. 43 cents of every tax dollar was spent on salaries and pensions.
According to Castillo, the current pension system is putting heavy strain on the national budget. He says that if the government reforms how pensions are paid out, it could drastically reduce those costs and help chip away at the country's $400 million deficit.
I've always been an advocate for contributory pensions. Belize's pension scheme is non-contributory, and that makes it unsustainable. You really want to make your pension scheme contributory, and then not only does that make it sustainable, but by paying contributory pensions, it means that public officers could then advocate for pensions to be tied to some kind of inflation or cost of living adjustments.
Earlier this week, opposition leader Tracy Tager-Panton shared that the figures presented in the budget are signs of challenges ahead. She raised a red flag about how the national budget is being spent, pointing out that once the government covers its massive expenses and debt payments, there's only a small slice of the pie left for the things that really matter, like education, healthcare, and infrastructure.
40% is for recurrent expenditure, 30% infrastructure development, 8% debt payments. So that's 40 and 80% of the budget is gone. There's 20% that should be now divided into areas that concern the Belizean people: education, health, social safety net programs for the most vulnerable in our communities, housing. These things are big things for people who are struggling every single day to put food on the table.
While the Prime Minister touted an 8.2% growth in GDP, not everyone is buying it. Panton pushed back, saying that kind of economic growth just isn't visible to the average Belizean struggling with day-to-day costs.
Where is it? And who has the benefit of that 8.2% growth in the GDP?
It's in the tourism sector. Jobs.
So what's happening to the productive sector? What are we going to do to address the energy crisis that is imminent in this country? What are we doing to prepare for the trade wars and the impact that will have on small economies like Belize? What are we doing to expand our exports to CARICOM and to Mexico and to Taiwan?
As far as loans go, Dr. Castillo says there's nothing wrong with borrowing if their interest rates are affordable.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with borrowing money if you're borrowing from cheap sources and then you're using that money for productive purposes to enhance your productive capacity. It's always a challenge if you're borrowing for recurrent expenditures. I'm not certain if that is being done. But if you're borrowing for capital expenditures, for capital projects, and your sources of financing are fairly low, it's low-cost financing, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Castillo said he anticipates a fiery debate of the budget, and he will be able to weigh both sides of the debate. Marian Ali for News 5.